This is one of those stories that I wasn't even sure I wanted to talk about because it seems like inside baseball sort of thing, but I find it disturbing, so I wanted to share it with you. Since 1952, there's a group of non-religious group leaders from around the world that gather in person every few years to discuss issues they're facing in their respective countries. So, what do you do if there's a group of atheist leaders from around the world? What do you talk about? Do you just sit around and not pray? No, they talk about human rights violations. They talk about blasphemy laws, environmental concerns, abortion rights, end of life care, things like that. And when you get these people in person, they could say, in my country, this is what's happening. This is what's so scary. But also, this is what we have found works. And we changed the law in this regard. And it didn't make the news, but we changed the law in this regard. You may want to try that in your country. So this stuff is very important to discuss these ways to change public policy in a humanistic sort of way. So this gathering is called the World Humanist Congress. And over the past several years, it's taken place. In 2011, it was in Oslo, Norway. In 2014, it was in Oxford. 2017, it was in London. 2020 was COVID. It didn't happen. 2023, it was in Denmark. And in 2026, they recently announced that this was scheduled to take place in Washington, D.C. This is a promotional thing that was posted online, I don't know, a couple of months ago. But they said, it's in August of 2026. We're telling you a year in advance so you can plan your trips. Because again, for people coming from other countries, you might have to do a lot of work to come to the United States. But we want to tell you now so you can do it. So it's scheduled in Washington, D.C. American Atheists in the U.S. was going to co-host the event. And the reason I bring this all up is because recently they issued a statement a couple of weeks ago that is very disturbing, announcing relocation of the 2026 World Humanist Congress. They're relocating it. They're not doing it in Washington, D.C. And look what they're saying. They're saying it's now going to take place in Ottawa, Canada. And look at this. The decision to relocate comes after a thorough assessment of the social, political, and economic environment in the United States under the current administration. Escalating religious nationalism and executive actions restricting movement, targeting civil society, and eroding human rights protections have created an inhospitable environment for an international gathering rooted in the values of secularism and inclusion. Which is basically saying, listen, there are people coming from other countries. There are people coming as openly atheist people from other countries. We cannot vouch for your safety in the United States because our government is going after people who have done no wrong. And that is the thing you expect to hear if this gathering was taking place in some, third world sort of country. They're saying we can't hold it in the US because the US is not a safe place. This is what they said later in that press release. The Trump administration's increasingly aggressive stance toward legal immigration, its creation of ideological commissioners to police anti-Christian bias, and retributive actions against nonprofit advocacy organizations, including humanist groups, pose serious risks to participants. And the fact that there have reductions to our visa application and approval capacity, combined with attendees' reluctance to travel to D.C. and American atheists' inability to predict and mitigate future threats, pose too large a risk to event attendees, staff, and volunteers. And if anyone is watching this thinking, whatever, they're doing this for publicity, they're just trying to get a dig in at the Trump administration, I promise you, they really did want to have this thing in Washington, D.C., to the point where they booked hotels. They booked conference space. There's a lot of logistics that go into planning any sort of conference, especially one where you're trying to get 1,000 people from around the world. Canceling something like that is not something anyone does lightly. And then trying really fast to oh shit, we can't do this here. Hey, Canada, would you be able to host this? Which doesn't just mean that means a local group has to take charge. That means they got to find a venue on relatively short notice, a year in advance, that can host a large gathering like this. And are you okay with all the hurdles people may have to jump through, visa applications, things like that, to fly to Canada. And what if anyone already made plans to DC? Now they got to change that. This is not something you do lightly. You do this because you have to, because the threat is that big. And they did it. This is what the chief executive of the group said. Humanists all over the world are alarmed by the escalating religious nationalism and decline in human rights protections in the United States. As a stable, inclusive, and rights affirming environment, Canada will allow us to convene an event that truly reflects humanist values. That's from Gary McClelland, the chief executive of Humanists International. And there were some more statements about the necessity of this relocation reflects a deeply troubling reality about our government. And they're going to carry on, not in retreat, but with a renewed purpose, which is nice. I'm glad they're still doing it. I am happy they're going to go on. I will say in 2017, that was the last time they needed to relocate their venue. They were supposed to have it in Sao Paulo, Brazil, but they had to move it to London in 2017. Why? Because there were concerns about Brazil's economy and the changing visa requirements, and that's why they're changing it. And by the way, even though these are humanists and they're not like the most numerous group in the world, this concern is not limited to them. In 2026, the World Cup is taking place in North America. There are concerns about whether the United States can legitimately bring in people from around the world to watch those games, and whether people from other countries can safely come to the United States to watch their teams play. In 2028, the Summer Olympics are happening in Los Angeles, and the Trump administration is already trying to devastate Los Angeles. And again, how do you have a global event when the Trump administration is still in power? I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Senegal's women's basketball team wanted to train in the United States, but they had to scrap their plans because their visas were denied. So you're going to start to see this sort of thing happen more and more, because I mean, you have seen the way legal immigrants have been treated by this Republican administration, and the very people who would benefit from a humanist conference like this one are the ones who are in a lot of danger if they step foot in the United States right now. So I'm so glad Canada is able to host this event so that it goes on. I'm happy to see that. I did speak to one of the people involved in this decision, and they said one of the things that triggered the fact that they tried to get Canada to host this, they saw the actions of ICE, the recent Trump travel bans, things like the task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. It just felt unsafe to ask people from around the world who are openly non-religious to come to the United States. And by the way, American Atheists, they surveyed members of the people who might attend this conference, and they asked them if they had any concerns about this conference. I was told that 2/3 of respondents, 2/3, expressed reservations about coming to the United States right now. And those are not people from, say, Islamic theocracies. They included plenty of Europeans. They included plenty of people from ostensibly free countries. But Humanists Canada is going to take charge of the event. And I'm glad Canada can step up, because the United States is very much not a safe place right now, especially for outsiders, but even for citizens right now. Okay, I'm going to stop there here. What other questions we got? Inhospitable to reason pretty much sums up America. Yeah, absolutely true. It's not a safe place. It's scary if you're someone in a position to criticize the country, and it's yeah, I don't know what else to add to that. That does sum it up. Our country is going to be even willing to send teams to the Olympics here. Yeah, it's too early to ask, right? Because it's in 2028, but you have to wonder what is going to happen. Are other countries going to boycott the United States? I wouldn't put it past them. Plus, we're talking about the Trump administration in year 4 of this particular term. It's only been like 6 months, and we've seen all the chaos they've caused. What's going to happen after, 5, 6 more of these stretches?